The handshake induction.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's a... I take no responsibility for explaining this to your tens of millions of listeners and viewers. But you're interrupting an automatic process, right? This is the key to it. It was made popular by I guess Richard Bandler, who's the guy behind NLP and so on. I don't know if he kind of created this thing, but perhaps Erickson did before him. I don't know. Anyway, you take an automatic process and you interrupt it in the middle. So like when you're shaking hands with somebody, that's such a familiar process that when you start, you're not thinking, okay, I'm going to grip this person's hand now, and I'm going to move my hand up and down with them a few times, then I'll take my hand away. You just kind of do it automatically. And there's something about interrupting that leaves people really flummoxed and bewildered because they're really caught off guard. Like if you imagine somebody comes up to you in the street and says, it's not 7:30. You know, your reaction isn't to go, yeah, I know, it's 9:20. Your reaction is a sort of, you think like you've missed something, like you're trying to make sense of it. It's a strange, kind of puts you on the back foot. And at that point, if you've got somebody who's fairly suggestible, and people coming up on stage, it's such an odd moment for them anyway, they're naturally very suggestible, that a clear instruction to sleep or whatever you want to give them tends to be taken very deeply, and very often then you'll see I'll shake hands and I'll break the pattern of the handshake, so I'll often take their hand and lift it up to their face and say sleep and show them their hand like that.
And they just sleep?
And well, it's not sleep, but it's a kind of it looks like, I mean, they'll do anything from eyes closed, head drops down, to just drop like a dead weight on the floor. You know what I found this most interesting actually was like applying this in slightly more useful everyday situations was as a sort of like a self-defense technique. I was walking between, so I was like, must have been like 20 or something, and I was at a magic convention, and I was walking from one hotel to another, and I'm dressed in like a three-piece velvet suit. I was this skinny British, like I might as well have, you know, punch me in the throat tattooed across my face. And this guy comes up and he's drunk. It's about 3 a.m, drunk, aggressive. He's with his girlfriend, clearly looking for a fight. And he comes up to me and he says, what are you fucking looking at? What are you looking at? And because I'd spoken about this, how to deal with this sort of thing, but had never found myself in this situation, I kind of had it all mentally rehearsed. So I said to him, the wall outside my house isn't 4 foot high. And I guess there's an equivalent to this with sort of adrenaline dump, I think it's called in martial arts. But there's it just like he's got all this adrenaline, and then a thing like that from me, which is just out of context. Like it makes sense. I'm not like talking gibberish. It makes sense, but it's just out of context. Right. So now suddenly he's thinking, I've missed something. So now he went, what? And I said, and his girlfriend walked off, and I said, the wall outside my house isn't 4 foot high. I spent some time in Spain. The walls there were very high, but if you look at the ones here, they're tiny, they're nothing. And then he just sort of broke down. He sort of went, wah, and
you started crying?
Well, no, it wasn't quite crying, but it was like all the adrenaline and everything just flooded out of him. And he sat down, and I ended up sitting next to him on the on the roadside, asking him, so the plan was I was going to try and stick his feet to the floor, and I had his whole plan, but he just kind of collapsed and sat down.
You were going to stick his feet to the floor with hypnosis?
Yeah, that was because I knew it'd be like this highly suggestible state, and like either way, the moment of aggression had passed. But I ended up weirdly sitting with him, asking him what had happened that evening, and his girlfriend I think she'd bottled somebody or something horrible had happened.
Oh, Jesus.
So he'd got out with all this aggression. But it's a good one, isn't it? If you just have like it could be just a song lyric or just some weird kind of thing that you can just go into in those situations. I mean, if someone's running at you with a knife, it's a bit difficult, but you're kind of strangely taking control of a situation. Otherwise, what are you going to do? If they say, what are you looking at? You can't, there's no way you can answer that without being on the back foot. So it just kind of nicely kind of inverts the situation and puts them on the back foot, which anyway, it worked. It was kind of fun.